We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the Halting Winter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Jeff Niten, City Manager in Mountlake Terrace, Washington. Oh, it's good to be in the home state. Jeff, thanks for being on the podcast today. Well,
thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Mountlake Terrace. Well, I don't know if you actually can drive through Mountlake Terrace. I've obviously been by on the 5 a billion times throughout my lifetime, but I can't wait to unpack just this unique place, especially with just the amazing growth that's happened north of Seattle, and just how things have changed, and how specifically as local government has to navigate the realities of growth at that level. And I think it's going to be a really unique conversation, especially with all the other kind of these cities around it. You know, I had on Laura Philpott a few months ago, and Maple Valley. Again, these places that have explosive growth, but then it's also somebody's got to be the control barrier to be like, you know, one of the things we talked about was she was like, you know, they want to kind of this last chunk of acreage, they want to turn into more homes. And she's like, we got to have space for commercial. We have like no commercial, and we're going to be screwed if we can't be kind of a real self-functioning city and just rely on everyone to go travel, especially with traffic nowadays. What should be a 15-minute commute is now an hour, you know? And so anyway, I can't wait to dig into all this. So before we dive into that though, let's do what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. Take us back to the very beginning and tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that launched the journey of Jeff.
Sure. Yeah. I was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. So I was an Army kid. At the time, we called ourselves an Army brat, you know, but don't know if that's appropriate anymore anyway. Fairbanks, Alaska, Fort Wainwright with the Army, and then moved all the way to Columbia, South Carolina, and Fort Jackson, where my dad was a drill sergeant. So given that background, I am nothing if not organized. And then after that, back to Alaska, to Anchorage. And we were there for about 3.5 years. That's a normal transition time, is about 3 years between stations. After that station, my dad retired, and we moved to Southern California. So Southern California is where my dad was before I was born, and he got drafted. So that's how he kind of got into all the Army stuff. And then Southern California, went to school there all the way through high school, and then through first 2 years of community college before transferring over to Nevada. So I've been pretty much everywhere, and every place has a great thing about it. I ended up in Washington, I always say, because it reminded me of Alaska. It's just always 20 degrees warmer.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Alaska to South Carolina. Talk about the extremes of weather, to go from the cold and to the especially depending on what time you move there, the soppy wet humidity of humidity. Does Alaska even have humidity?
Yeah, July was when we moved. I don't remember it. I was a kid. It didn't really affect me much, but my parents still talk about it. It's like, that was awful, that transition. And as an adult, I can appreciate that. At the time, I was like, let's go outside and play.
That's right. I love it. And so as you're growing up, again, your dad's a drill sergeant. Such a unique, like you say, there's probably some good old discipline in that home. Did you have any awareness of local government? Any idea of even what a city manager was when you were growing up?
No, not at all. I did have a strong inclination for public service because, Dad served in the Army. Mom worked for the Air Force, doing a lot of admin things at various places that we transferred around to. So public service was ingrained pretty early. As far as city, county government, those types of things, I didn't really pay much attention to that as I was a kid. One of the first instances of dealing with local government was going to get a permit for a patio cover. So I kind of learned how that process worked when I was, an early teenager, 13 or 14, something like that. So that was really my first interaction with local government back then.
Fascinating. So you're in Southern California for your high school years. Before you, on your first kind of outside of the home, Antelope Valley College is where you start your college experience. What were you thinking before you got there? What did Jeff think he was going to do with his adult life? Was there any draw to the military to follow after your parents, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, so there was a draw to the military, but when I graduated in 1990, some things were going on that maybe have been repeatable over the years. And my dad said, I think one of us is enough. So didn't pursue that role, but didn't go to college right after high school either. Did some roofing, did some plumbing. A lot of trade work, and decided, when I'm 40 years old, I don't want to be hurting all the time. But I had some of that background. So decided to go back to college when I was in my early 20s, and started at the community college level and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and wasn't really sure. I didn't really have a draw to much of anything. When I transferred to UNLV, I got an internship with the Southern Nevada Water Authority, which water issues there, the Las Vegas Valley Water District was interconnected. One of my political science professors helped me get connected with that opportunity and opened up an entirely new world for me and really set the direction for the rest of my career.
Fascinating. We just had Justin Hopkins on. He's the general manager for Stockton East, their water district. And the water world is a fascinating, people, if they had a sliver of the understanding of all the chaos it takes to bring your water to you, not just in the science, but in these water rights. Like, the water rights world is insane to me. It's so wild. Oh, well, cool. So what, you ended up in University of Nevada, UNLV. Why there, and why public policy? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so did an analysis of a book called Cadillac Desert. It's a book, Mark Reisner wrote it, incredibly influential on my career. During my internship with the Water Authority, we worked on with Clark County, Nevada land use planners for something called the Las Vegas Valley Wash Comprehensive Management Plan. And so I got to interact with a few of those folks and kind of learn a little bit about what they did. And I had always been fascinated by maps, probably because we were moving all over the place, right? So I always had a globe in my room, and I never really thought about turning that into a career. But then when I had those interactions with, land use and urban planners and that kind of thing, I was like, this is really fascinating. One of the people that I worked for at during my internship was actually like seconded basically to this WASH comprehensive plan, and they had an opening for an entry level planner right about the time I was graduating, and they said, "Hey, you should apply for this." And I did, and I found that world absolutely fascinating. I got to work on all kinds of stuff in Las Vegas. Some of the hotels, the big ones, the Venetian, that's still, it's still there, still ticking. Got to work on a little piece of that. I was junior, so I didn't get a lot of it, but got to work on a little piece of that. It was just fantastic. Really got into it and really enjoyed it.
It's so fascinating, again, like just the scope of local gov, whether city, county, and all the work that it does to touch these things. And yeah, planning is, I had no idea until I started doing this podcast, even what a planner was in local gov. In fact, my brother-in-law is a planner for the city of Seattle. And I was just like, I don't know what you do. You're weird, you play with schematics and whatnot. But yeah, it's just fascinating, all the different projects that you touch that again get permitted or even built out by cities and counties. So you work then after undergrad for Clark County as a planner, and then you have this detour, at least on the map that I have. You're going to go work for Farmers Insurance as a claims specialist. What happens there?
Yeah, I had started a family, and family was from Phoenix, Arizona. Mesa, really, but wanted to move back closer to family, and there weren't any particular openings in the Phoenix area at that time. So, took a job doing that for a little while, and found out how the private sector works, and it's good work, it's steady work, but I had no passion for it. At all. And, going back to that, the water issue, it's like, I'm not sure, based on that, the books I had read and kind of focusing on water policy in the western area of the United States. I'm not sure I want to be in Phoenix or Vegas or Southern California. Let's take a look at Oregon, Washington, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And was lucky enough to have an opportunity to get back into the profession in Oregon.
Yeah, you again, Clark County for Las Vegas, and then now you're going to transition and become a planner for Columbia County in Oregon. Tell us a little bit about Columbia County. Tell us about that transition, because this is going to be the first time you live in the Pacific Northwest. What was that like, and what were maybe did you remember any differences? I always find it unique when someone joins local gov and you have your first experience, especially you kind of do it backwards, where you go into local gov, then you go into private sector, and now you're going to go back. So I always think it's fascinating too, not only in how different counties can work, because you kind of think, in the military, I've had a couple military people on. We just had Dean Heward on, and he, military has standard operating procedures. Like the way you fly a helicopter in Washington is the same as you fly it in Florida. Pilots can get together. Local government is like, you could be cities right next to each other, and you totally are an opposite of how many electeds and how you function and your makeup. Do you have an administrator, a manager? It's just a wild. So what was it like in your second, specifically coming out of the private sector, and maybe the speed of that, and just what was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. So one of my professors at UNLV, tried to get a law adopted in Nevada, similar to the way Oregon and somewhat to Washington does things. It's more of a state level driven, boundaries, urban growth boundaries, that kind of thing. Didn't get adopted, but that was exactly what I found when I moved to Oregon and figured out how that worked. Was it's a top-down land use system. I believe it still is. I haven't worked there since '04, so it's been a number of years. But a top-down system, you're implementing state rules with some local control. But it was really interesting for county level planning in Oregon, because strict limits on what you can do and how those things are interpreted, where you can put a home. for fire danger, which is something I never really worried about in Nevada, and those types of things. It was an interesting, very interesting piece of my career to kind of learn how things were done in the Northwest and why, kind of that how sprawl causes expenses to continue to go up, and you got to maintain all this infrastructure. And if you keep it compact, you get more bang for your buck, that kind of thing. Highly interesting.
It's so fascinating. I can imagine, like, again, you're a young guy, when you start working for Clark County and you're excited and you're getting to know it, and you've been in there, and then you kind of, you start a family. So you got, hey, we got to find a job down here. You kind of leave public sector, go into private for a while. And then I'm sure you're excited to get back into it. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm back into it. I'm riding the saddle again. And then you're like, what book of Judges world are you guys living in? This is totally different. And that's just kind of, it's always funny to me talking with even tenured city managers who are like, dude, I could ride this rodeo blindfolded. And then they go to a different city, especially in a different state. And they're like, why do you guys do it this way? It just makes no sense. They gotta like almost start all over again. It's so fascinating. So you're going to do that for a year. And then you leave the moss and the timber of Oregon and you come up to Washington. Bonnie, and now you're going to work for a city for the first time. You've been in county. Talk about maybe that difference. How is it like working for a city and especially coming up to Washington?
Yeah. Washington, the land use rules, one of the things that happened in Oregon was Measure 37. I don't remember if people remember that or not, but essentially, you under Measure 37, you could put a smelter, right next to a subdivision, if you had owned the land long enough. And I was like, this is not going to turn out good. We're going to have gravel pits everywhere. It's since been overturned and kind of gone back. But came up to Washington. Working for a city is significantly different. Bonnie Lake, I think, still is a strong mayor form. So that's a little bit, that was a little bit different as well, trying to learn how all those things work. But a lot of development there was happening there at the time. Lots of single family homes, but going back to, you mentioned Maple Valley, the way things are, the revenue streams in Washington State, if you don't have commercial, you are dead in the water. It's going to be a very tough uphill climb for you to make any financial progress or have any stability long term. So we were working on several things. We had larger home developments, 100 lot subdivisions, 150, that kind of thing. Where in Vegas, I was working on 1,500 lot subdivisions, so significantly different. And because of that, top-down land use rules, right? This is what you can do. This is your boundary limits. So kind of learning the differences between Oregon and Washington as well. And then working on commercial projects. We had, Target come in, we had Home Depot come in. Working through those issues, particularly with traffic, was something that was an interesting thing to deal with along a state highway that the city doesn't have any control over. So going through those three-party negotiations was definitely a learning experience that I still use some of those principles to this day about how we can make things happen or make sure that they happen the right way.
Maybe speak because again, as a keynote speaker, I get the pleasure of speaking across the nation in different states for different associations, and it's always intriguing to me that the similar problems are kind of problems throughout, every state's dealing with them, but they kind of have unique differences and variances. Like I actually think that some of the challenges with our tax, with the way a city makes their money in Washington, I think they're mirrored. In fact, in Wisconsin is similar. I was out there recently. We were talking about that. I was like, oh, I think you guys have the same thing that we have. Talk about that just for a minute for the national audience. What makes it difficult specifically for Washington cities and how that tax works and how the income works?
Yeah. So three biggest revenue streams for the vast majority of cities in Washington, I would say, are going to be property tax, sales tax, and then utility tax. There's some mix there, but usually those are the three main ones. Sales tax, which that's why you're focused in Washington State so much on economic development and why it's such a big priority here, is really the only one that you can grow. In Washington State, we have limits on how high the utility tax can go. So you're capped there. But the big driver is property taxes. There was a initiative that passed, struck down by the Supreme Court in the early 2000s, and then adopted by the legislature following the Supreme Court striking it down, that limits property tax increase to 1% per year. So inflation, right now and over the last 5, 6, 7 years has been significantly higher than 1%. So really your only growth opportunity is that retail sales tax. And inflation affects us, our costs as well. So we're getting kind of hit on both ends, and it really squeezes our revenue and our capacity to provide services to our community. But figuring out how to continue to be innovative and how to provide services in a different way is an imperative. I mean, we absolutely must do that here. And that kind of clashes with, city government, county government, organizational cultures, right? It's lots of long-term employees. We've always done it this way. And it's always worked. And it's like, it's unsustainable. So you have to figure out new ways to do it and create an environment for people where they feel comfortable taking chances, right? I like to tell folks, make mistakes. It's fine. Don't make the same mistake twice. Make new mistakes. Try something new. Incredibly important in our structure. And then trying to increase that retail tax base is incredibly important as well.
One thing I've learned from hosting hundreds of conversations with local government leaders is this: the challenges never stop changing. So many conversations seem to come back to the same question. How do you keep moving your community forward when there's never enough time, money, people, or certainty? You're always looking for ways to work smarter, make better decisions with limited resources, and prepare for what's coming next, all while still delivering the services your residents count on every day. That is why I'm grateful for partners like Tyler Technologies. Tyler has put together 3 free ebooks specifically for local government leaders that I think are well worth your time. One explores how your team can use AI to eliminate repetitive work and improve your efficiency. Another highlights how cloud technology can help modernize your operations. And the third focuses on how your organization can remain resilient, even when things don't go according to plan. You can download all 3 ebooks for free, along with several other resources, all at tylertech.com/winter. Again, tylertech.com/winter. And if you're going to be attending the NACO annual conference, it's in New Orleans this July, stop by booth number 231 and connect with the Tyler team. They would love to learn more about your community and the unique challenges that you are facing. While you're there, if you'd like to see how AI is being used in an actual government setting, make sure to attend the Technology Innovation Forum. It's featuring Fulton County and Tyler Technologies. You're going to hear how they are putting these tools to work in their day-to-day operations and what they're learning along the way. To learn more about AI that works to make your county or your city government far more efficient, visit tylertech.com/winter. Now, let's get back to the conversation. And I think we can talk about it at Bonnie Lake. Obviously, we're going to get to Ridgefield in your story, which I was just talking to someone the other day about Ridgefield and how Ridgefield has exploded. And this is one of the issues that people don't realize, I think, when, again, I think of Maple Valley, not only because I had Laura on, but because my brother lived out in Maple Valley. And he told me, this was years ago, he's like, oh yeah, we bought a house in Maple Valley. I'm like a farm? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's nothing in Maple Valley. And he's like, no, dude, it is like Toontown. It is blown up. I went out there and was just like, what in the foreign lands has landed here? It's just like, and again, it's all brand new. It's all overnight, but people don't realize, again, that your local government has to be thinking not just about everyone who wants to invest, and sure, that gets exciting, but they have to be thinking about what's the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And someone has to, and the pressure to live in the present and to deliver all the services that cities are required and live in the future to predict, to try to not even predict, but to try to be mindful of are we building a place that can flourish in the future and not just meet whatever today's need is? That, man, that's, again, we just don't give appreciation to the weight that's on leaders doing this and making these. And that's why I think, again, just to toot the horn of professionals, this is why you need professional management in your city. Again, I have great respect for the electeds who raise their hand and do that. They do not know how to do they're not trained for it. They do not have the skills for it. And to think that they do is, again, it's not accurate. And so I love waving the flag to say we need professionals in cities. Please, dear God, do not go back to just electeds. I do not think that is healthy, especially for the challenging times that we have facing some of the unique, not just housing, homelessness, all kinds of things that we have to face. We need professionals running the ship, bringing their skills, bringing those dynamic things and experiences too, I think.
Yes. Well, and I think that, it's a common tension, I think, pretty much anywhere, right? Is professionals, whether you're a department head or a deputy or a city manager, what have you, your time horizon, it has to be a decade, 2 decades, 50 years. When you're elected officials, their time horizons are usually 4. So there's always that tension there that you have to recognize and learn how to navigate through those things. And explain what's best for the community long term and why. It's not just enough to say, I'm the expert, this is the way we have to do it. You have to be able to explain why, not only to your elected folks, but also to the community at large, right? Seeing what the community is going to look like 20 years from now, when it's not on the ground in front of them, is very hard for people to picture. So it's up to us to explain that to them in a way that where they are.
So good. I would jump right to Ridgefield, but you have a bigger blip on the map. You're going to go from Bonnie Lake to Clark County. You're still going to be a planner, but you're going to spend almost a decade there. Tell us about why the move. Was it just location? Did you want to go back to county work? What was that draw there?
Yeah, Clark County's. I've hit Clark County in every state I've been in, apparently. So yeah, Clark County, Washington, right across the river from Portland. Went down there because it was a promotional opportunity. So got to the second level, so a planner 2, or some places call them an associate planner. So I got that promotional opportunity. But the other thing it gave me was, in all my previous planning work, I had done current planning work. So I was reviewing permits, I was reviewing site plans for the regulations that had been adopted by the elected body. In Clark County, I was able to do the long range work. So working on comprehensive plans, working on annual reviews for comprehensive plans, that kind of thing. So sort of the visioning element of the planning, because there's, in almost every profession, there's kind of 2 sides, sometimes more. So planning, you got the long range and then the current, along with policy work and that kind of thing. So it gave me the opportunity to learn that other side of the fence. And then got promoted there into a lead role for 6 years, I believe. If I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of hazy in my memory at this point. But got to work on some of those comprehensive plans, some of the updates to the comp plans, and understanding how capital planning comes into comprehensive planning. You're planning for this population. What are the roads going to cost? What's the sewer pipe going to cost? Where in the scheme of things are you going to put these major capital projects in order to serve the populations and the jobs and the environmental impacts? Got to work on an environmental impact statement for the first time, which I also thought was really fascinating. So learning those 2 sides of the fence, I think, has really helped me in my career, because I can see things from different perspectives. People getting permits and not understanding why certain regulations are in place, and then people looking long term about what our community is going to look like 20, 30 years down the road. Incredibly valuable.
Yeah. It's unique too that you're there 2006 to 2015, which here's where my mind goes, especially in planning. Because we've talked about you've got the present things, and then you're trying to kind of forecast, are we making sure the grid looks healthy in light of all that we're going to allow and code. What did that look like? 2006, obviously, if if you're old enough, you remember 2008, the big economic collapse, right? And I remember I'm in Olympia right now, and outside north of Olympia is Lacey and the kind of Hawks Prairie area. And Hawks Prairie was just blowing up. I mean, you're Shelton's in your story, so you're familiar with all this place. The Cabela's, where the Cabela's is now, was going to be this huge development. And I remember the plans. I remember the guy who was leading it. And then, gosh, man, I went to so many city meeting stuff, looking at all this. And we were looking at, I was the conductor of a orchestra at the time. And we were like, well, an amphitheater and this outside venue. And we were talking about all this stuff. You had I'm sure, leading up to 2008, everyone had a plan, everyone had a dream. And then all of a sudden, it was just like overnight, the light switch went out and it was like, and then you had the fallout of all the, especially commercial, big projects that were just dead. What did that look like as a planner, especially in a county when you're overseeing? I would think county work is very, in a city, you've got a tighter footprint and you're kind of, but in a county, you're trying to think about all these places and spots. Well, any insights from there, from what that experience was like, kind of the top and the bottom, and then to have to help, bring a community and all these places kind of back out of that?
Yeah, it's actually Clark County. I wouldn't say it's unique, somewhat. It has a large urban area within county jurisdiction that's not incorporated. Part of the urban growth boundary for Vancouver, but annexation hasn't happened for whatever reason, and it's been that way for decades. So we got to see both sides. We got to see both the rural impacts and the urban impacts. For us, Clark County Public Service Center, we worked on the third floor there, and long range planning, which is the department that I was in, current planning, all the building inspectors, everything else, all on the same floor. And there were about 300 people on that floor. And it taught me a really valuable lesson, because we came back from lunch one Monday and half of those folks were gone. And it taught me a very valuable lesson about long range planning, about looking out into the future and preparing for what could potentially happen, not only personally but professionally. I was lucky that I was able to keep my position, and a lot of other folks too, but that had a long-term impact on the organization. But it also had, what we had is a lot of subdivisions throughout kind of the whole county, including in the cities, that had, the streets put in, all the public infrastructure had been put in, no houses were there. So you just had, ready subdivisions ready to go. So after 3 or 4 years, when things started picking back up again, we had an immediate uptake in a lot of that inventory because it was available. But thinking about that and the impact on, the community and really the nation as a whole, it's like, pull back a little bit. It's not all about grabbing every dollar you can today. It's about, leaving this place better than what you found it. So that kind of really informed my philosophy, my leadership philosophy going forward, and how I manage the cities that I serve today.
Mm. So your biggest chunk of time here is Clark County in the planning. And then all of a sudden you go and work for the city of Ridgefield, which I think is in Clark County, right? And you're going to be the community development director. That's kind of interesting. Tell us about, again, these kind of titles. Sometimes we can imagine, like, somebody might think, oh, that's just planning. You're developing community. Some might think you're hosting bingo night. Like, what in the world does community development director mean, at least for Ridgefield? And what was it like working for a city that, again, I think it was like 10,000 people in 2010. It goes to 15,000 overnight, and I don't know what it is now, but I think it just continues to skyrocket. Tell us about that experience.
It does. So I was lucky enough to be selected for that position. Basically, what a community development director is in county and city context is somebody who is leading the planning department. So you're responsible for the long range and the current planning, going back to before, where I was able to learn kind of both sides of the coin. That really helped me move into that position because I had done both and I understood both and how they worked and could make them as efficient as possible. Ridgefield, when I was there, and I get a little bit of a side story here in a second, but Ridgefield, when I was there for all 4.5 years I was there, and probably several years after, was the fastest growing city in Washington State. So we were, permitting 1,000 new single-family home lots a year, permitting 350 homes a year, that kind of thing, which is tremendous when it was myself, a building official, two inspectors, and a planning staff of two. So it was a significant amount of work, and I learned a lot. Learned a lot from my experience there. I was very fortunate to have the city manager in Ridgefield, who is still the city manager there. Steve Stewart selected me for that position. I was extremely grateful to gain that experience. It's a growing community. My wife is from Ridgefield. Her grandparents lived there since 1928, I believe. So, going back to that financial discussion earlier about how you raise revenue for cities in Washington State, I permitted a lot of things and worked on a lot of things that she's not overly fond of. So, but, kind of explaining the need for it and then having that, I grew up here, why are you changing all this stuff is, it's an interesting dynamic, but we have fun with it.
I would imagine, yeah, when when Jeff comes to the family potluck, Grandma and Grandpa aren't too happy with what Jeff is allowing.
Yeah, it was, but it was fun. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. We got quite a few things done for the community. An outdoor recreation center, in conjunction working with the school district. Brought in a new grocery store, and now they have an In-N-Out burger there, which is like, okay, yeah.
That's right. That was the first one in Washington, I think, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Gosh, that was just on my feed of every social media. When it tells you, connects you to people in Washington, it's just like everyone. In that line, it's probably still 3 miles long today, and it's been open forever. But yeah, it's just wild. And so, when the next stop is going to be the city of Shelton, you're going to be a city manager here. When in the journey did you know you wanted to be a city manager? What was the draw to that? Tell us about that.
So when I worked for Clark County, Washington, our county administrator at that point, they hadn't changed over to a charter form yet. That happened a little bit later, I think 2013, 14, something like that. A guy named Bill Barron. And he really influenced how I saw leadership possibilities and kind of the impact you could have without being elected, essentially. How to work with public officials. And I saw that from afar because I was still down, way down on the hierarchy. But he really informed how I viewed those things. Just watching the way he addressed situations publicly and hearing about things, throughout the organization. And then when I went to work in Ridgefield, just watching how, our city manager at the time navigated certain situations and dealt with things and did things in a way that were in the best interest of the community, whether people were unhappy with him or not. Because you tell those stories. I think it's important to have somebody in a leadership role, particularly a city government, that is interested first and foremost in transparency and ethics. And those are the types of things that were important to me. And I thought, you know what, I can do this, and I think I'd be pretty good at it. Because those are the things that are important to me. I'm not interested in, running a gigantic city. I'm not interested in my ego necessarily. It's like I want to do things the best way I can for me and for future generations. And that's kind of the legacy that is important for me to leave, not somebody that, is flashy or has the nicest car or the biggest house or anything. That's not important to me.
Mm. And so you're in Ridgefield, and to do this, you go back. So when you go back to you're going to go to the University of South Dakota. There it is. My mouth's going to work. You're going to get your MPA. Did you specifically do that because you knew I want to become a city manager, or I want to at least open up that door, and so I need that degree to do it?
Yeah, that's when I started looking at different schools, online programs. I looked for the one that was accredited and the most cost effective.
Yeah.
South Dakota was it. When I made the decision that that's what I wanted to do, I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. I got a bunch of sideways looks when I didn't go to grad school kind of right after I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And it's like, yeah, I'm my last semester at school. I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to hear any more about this. Let's just get out of here. I thought about going back, but never really did anything about it. But when I made that decision that that's what I wanted to do, then went back and got that done. And happy I did.
Yeah, well, I think I love encouraging young people, turning them on to just the career opportunities in local gov. But I also love this. But part of your story is to say, hey, you might be a planner, you might be whatever in local gov right now, and you might not even have thought, man, maybe it's city management, maybe it's an assistant city manager, deputy, and that MPA. It's just kind of part of the thing. Like it is like, those are the three letters that we want after the name. And so I love that, go get the degree. And again, I think I have multiple, master's degrees. It's because I'm addicted to learning, but I also have done them. I also think you can be mindful about going, I'm not gonna I don't have to take off 3 years of my life and take a sabbatical to go get a master's. You can do it while you work, and it's not, I'm not gonna say don't try your best, don't get a 4.0, but you probably don't need a 4.0. You probably just need the letters, right? And so I love that in your story, because again, you've been working for almost a couple decades now, and so it could be, I don't want to do it, but again, it's part of the journey of going, what do I need? What do I just got to get to that next level? So you finish that, and then the city of Shelton opens up city management. It's going to be your first city management position. And I think, one of my dreams is to go do a TV show. I don't care about it being on TV. I'll just YouTube it. But the idea is to go to these cool little towns that have had transformation. And what I mean by that is, like, again, Shelton, they had the mill. The mill shuts down. What do you do? Like, I think I always use the story of Luke Dyer and Van Buren, Maine, and how, their main industry shuts down. They move the border station from right in their downtown to a mile down. It just kills the city. And it took someone like him to come in and go, hey guys, sure, the past is sad, but the future can be bright if we just get some creativity and some go hump, and let's go do something. And I think it's kind of interesting. Shelton's trying to still figure it out, I think. And so I think, I want to hear from you specifically as someone who's been in one of these towns. And part of the other thing I don't think people know about Shelton is, again, Shelton's right outside of Olympia, the capital city here. Shelton, it has actually a lot of wealth. Like, people retire there into some of the most gorgeous houses in the world, and you'd never know if you ever drove through the area. You'd never even think that if you drove through the area. So tell us about Shelton. Tell us about being a city manager for the first time and kind of the uniqueness of that city and what you learned there.
Yeah. So what attracted me to Shelton, I was looking at opportunities, and then Shelton came up. And one of the reasons it did was because they had just transitioned right before I got there from the last commission form of city government in Washington State. So they had 3 commissioners. Each of the commissioners had their own portfolio of, police and, public works and that kind of thing, and they all ran it. They just transitioned to a council manager form before I got there, so I was their first city manager. Defining all those systems, how things are working. I was greatly helped by Mike McCarty, who was a city administrator in Shelton way back in the day, but had become president of the Association of Washington Cities for a period of time. He was a tremendous help to me when I got there. And defining how council manager forms of government are to work in operations. You can have it all on paper and everything else, but actually putting it into operation was huge and was a big lift. And I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
So Shelton is, again, it's this unique area, north of Olympia, and it's, unless you drive, and again, the mill. Tell us about the history of it, and maybe give us a perspective of, especially as someone who's there for a number of years. What are some of the challenges of a city like a Shelton, especially now? Again, key transition. You just said it's coming out of a form of government. It's probably. Were you the first city manager? Was there a city manager there before you?
No, I was the first one with that title. There had been city administrators, but Shelton is incredibly beautiful. The area around the city itself and Mason County, those are some of the most beautiful areas of our state. And Shelton is somewhat unique. There's a lot of transition that's been happening there over a number of years, and how those things are handled. You have some pretty significant employers. The state prison system is not too far out there. And the State Patrol Academy is also right outside of Shelton. They've got a great airport, a smaller not municipal, but a county airport, right nearby. A lot of economic development opportunities there. And then, helping people see kind of the vision of what it could be, if that's, what direction do you want to go, and helping people define direction. Financial sustainability for the things that are happening in the community, and making sure that it's sustainable long term, because it is a beautiful place. Also has some of the best oysters in the world. So if you like that, Taylor Shellfish is based not too far from there. So if you like that, then that's the place to be.
I have this unique pleasure, this unique opportunity to meet with thousands of local government leaders from across the nation every year through conferences and workshops and the podcast. Just these interviews, these conversations are just so insightful. And one of the things I have learned about local government leaders is this: the best leaders are lifelong learners, not because they have all the answers. It's because they understand that leadership, that journey of leadership, is never finished. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every budget season, every organizational change or disruption is another opportunity to grow. That's why this summer we're doing something different inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. We're launching a special summer series called Stories That Shape Leaders. You know that every week I take a best-selling book, usually a business book, and we break down its insights and apply them to local gov. This summer, we're taking biographies, memoirs, timeless leadership books that don't necessarily fall into those typical business, culture, strategy kind of genre. And we're going to explore the lives, the decisions, the failures, challenges, the lessons of leaders who navigated incredible adversity, who had to build trust when hope was fleeting, who inspired others not only to dream, but to take action, and who left a lasting impact. Leadership isn't shaped just through strategies and frameworks alone. It is shaped through stories. Stories that challenge assumptions, stories that expand our perspective, stories that help us become the leaders our communities need us to be. When you join the MLDC, you unlock the entire summer series, but you unlock even more. You unlock the weekly leadership content, the live mastermind sessions, the nationwide community of local government leaders, and all the MLDC resources, not just for the summer, but for the rest of 2026. If you are looking for a place to continue growing this summer while connecting with leaders who understand the unique challenges of local government, I would love to invite you to join us. Learn more at haltingwinter.com/MLDC, or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. It's a great place. And I think that whole area, clear up to the canal. What is I have the wrong name. It's not Seabrook. What's the resort up there?
I've been there and went there for Mother's Day brunch a couple times.
I can't. Alderbrook.
Alderbrook. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
We used to get up there and get away. And what's interesting about Shelton, and this is, again, you've been down Ridgefield, Vancouver. I always felt like this in Vancouver. It never had a downtown. You're trying to figure out where is it? Where do people hang out here? Shelton is unique in that it has a downtown. Like when you come up from Olympia, you take the exit and there's downtown. But then it has this second city center with the Walmart and all the place. And I remember when I drove by there the first time, I was just like, what is this? It's like Shelton 2. And so it's one of these things as development happens, right? And I think those are the things where you're trying to find a city to have a soul and to figure out what it is. It's part of that. Local gov plays a huge component in trying to shape that and shift that and make that. And like you say, it can be challenged sometimes because some people grew up and they go, no, this has always been downtown. I don't want downtown to change. And so, like you say, even as you experienced with your grandparents there in Richfield, there's these dynamics, and local gov is not just trying to, sometimes you can look at local gov, whatever your own opinion is, and go, well, that's the bad guy. Local gov's apolitical. It is trying to do the best thing for the totality of the community that's there as it's moving forward. And I highlight that to give appreciation to the local government leaders. I think sometimes caught between, the two yelling people who are on different sides, and they're just trying to, be a healthy mediator. And they're often seen as the bad person. It's like, man, I'm just trying to mediate,
Yeah. And I've had in Ridgefield, because my wife's family had been there for 100 years. I had a little bit of that, people could see that I had the best interests of the community at heart, even though I didn't grow up there personally. In Shelton, that was, it had to be very incremental and slow because I was an outsider. I had come from somewhere else. I didn't grow up there. So building those relationships and building that trust, that's really what the core of local government is about, is those interpersonal community relationships and making sure you establish those early on so that when you make a decision that somebody on the surface might not necessarily agree with, they trust you as an individual enough to know that you're doing it in the best interests of the entire community in the long term. And sometimes building those relationships can be tough, but it's worth it. It's worth the time and energy and investment that you put into it too.
It seems one of the repeated themes on this podcast from city managers, administrators, is that oftentimes you are going to a place where you have no connection, you have no, history of this place. And so again, when these decisions that feel kind of monumental change decisions have to be made, you can be kind of pitched as the bad person instead of, hey, I'm the person that's trying to help professionally bring you into whatever you want. That's where it's always interesting to me, where city managers become the scapegoat. We got to fire the city manager. It's like, why? Like, they're just doing the will of the elected. And, I just had Charlie Bush. I was just chatting with him. He's up at Cedar Woolley, and, they just had a change of mayor. And again, it was kind of a heated, kind of like the other side's going to take power now. And Charlie's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to tell you. I don't have my own agenda that I'm trying to my aim, my whole mission is to implement what the electeds want. And I think that's where it's again, people just don't understand, I think, local gov sometimes as to what the players and what the positions really do. Tell us about Mountlake Terrace. You're going to become the city manager there in 2023, and maybe hit on this idea again of how to be successful in the city management seat, specifically with that relationship building. As you mentioned, you did this in Shelton. It does take time. What does that look like both internally and externally? Because I always say it's interesting for a city manager, because I call it the three-headed snake. You've got your electeds, and they're kind of their own, thing on them. Then you have staff, and again, with the city staff and so many departments, it can be siloed. It can be, we've always done it this way, and this is how much autonomy we have, and all the drama of insider departments. And then you have residents, and man, that's a lot of things to juggle. And with a lot of different opinions and a lot of different, ways they see the world. Talk about coming into Mountlake Terrace. What did you encounter there, and what's going on there?
Mountlake Terrace was in an interesting position when I got there. We hadn't closed the financial books for 4 years before I arrived. I had not had audited financial statements for the same number of years. Things were very siloed, and there had been quite a significant turnover about 6 months prior to my arrival. Our entire engineering department, except one, had left, along with a bunch of other positions. So coming in and trying to define that and making sure we're all on the same team, which is what creates an effective organization in my mind, is a big deal. So that was one of my first tasks. Well, first is establishing the relationship with your council members, making sure you know what they are interested in and what's important to them, where the third rails are for each of them, because it's different, for each one of them, all 7, which is what makes this job so fun. And then, defining what that is, that takes about 6 months before they know that you've listened to them and you're implementing what they'd like to see. So you can start to build that trust, I think is important. Then you start looking at the staff team, what's working, what's not, why is it not working? I think one of the biggest benefits that I had when I went to Mountlake Terrace is I told several people, within the first 3 or 4 months, they were used to coming to the city manager to get approval for everything. And I finally just said, hey, you're a professional. What do you think is the best call? I don't know everything. What do you think in your professional judgment is the best way to approach this? And they'd tell me, and I'd say, do it, do that. You're fine. I don't need to sign off on every single little thing. It's like we're all professionals. We're all pulling in the same direction. And then implementing, leadership team meetings where it wasn't just me talking, having different department heads, city clerk, work together to formulate, pick a problem, and you cross-departmentally work together to get that fixed. And then bring me your solution. And 9 times out of 10, I would sign off on that and say, yep, sounds good. Go forth and do good. But I think it's really, if you don't give people autonomy over the work that they do, they're not going to take it. They're just going to do what they're told and they don't have to think. And it's like, that's not why people get into this work to begin with. They have an idea about how they want to approach things. And, as long as it's in line with overall city goals, go forth and do good. I'm not here to stand in your way. Yeah, I can count on one hand the number of times across all my leadership positions where I've said, this is the way we're going to do it. And there's usually a very good reason for it. Always there's a very good reason for it. But, most of the time, it's like, hey, you guys, work together. Let's work together to develop a solution together so we can all buy in and implement it in the best interest of the community. So breaking down those silos was incredibly difficult on top of the financial challenges that we were dealing with. When you don't know your starting fund balance year to year, how do you know what to budget? So we've got that all fixed. Our finance director is an incredibly good at what she does, and she's very collaborative, which is something that I always look for when I'm hiring people. It's like, this isn't mine, this is ours, right? So she has got it all fixed. A ton of work, and is going on vacation here for about 3 weeks, which is well deserved because it was a ton of work, and she's got it accomplished. We're all caught up. And I am so happy with that.
It's so awesome. What you've said, I could spend another hour talking to you and diving into this, but I'm going to be mindful of your time. In our leadership group, we just talked about, we went through 2 books. One's called Prime to Perform, and the other is No Rules Rules, which is the story of Netflix and their whole culture. Prime to Perform talks about exactly what you just said. And it's like, especially in local government, I see this. People, because we tend to, when something goes wrong, we tend to blame a person first and foremost instead of a process or a system and because we do that, people do not want to perform because no one wants the consequences. And so what happens is you create a culture of inertia that's just not moving, like nothing moves because no one really wants to take risk. And guess what happens when no one moves? You silo and you compartmentalize and you just show up and just do, instead of, you lose the mission, you lose the collaboration, the excitement. So it's so cool that it just articulated, basically what I'm articulating the whole next week is that it's so important then to be aware as a leader where you are. Again, as city manager, I could go off, but it's interesting, isn't it, that you got to city management probably because you had answers, because you did that work. And so, in fact, I'm trying to remember what book it is. It might even be, it's Multipliers. That's one of the books we're doing at the end of this month. And Multipliers talks about the idea of the accidental diminisher. And it says the accidental diminisher gets into leadership because of all the work they did, but now they're in leadership. And guess what? They keep doing that. They keep having all the answers. And they think that they're serving people by, oh, you're hurting? Let me take on that. And so it looks noble, but it's killing the organization because you become this plug in the pipeline where every decision's got to be passed through you instead of spending the time going, this is how we make decisions. This is why. Go and do likewise, like you just said.
Yeah, that's right. It's and that was it was difficult for me to learn when I transitioned from Planner 3 at Clark County to Community Development Director at Ridgefield. But you learn, if you do something for somebody, they'll let you, right? And that creates disengagement among the workforce. It creates all kinds of problems. The other thing is you have to tell people what the mission is. You have to tell them where they're going. If they don't have signposts on, how they're going to do things, how are they going to make decisions? It makes them afraid to make decisions. And then you revert back to this is exactly black and white in the municipal code, what it says we have to do. There's no thinking involved. And that's the way you create disengagement as well. So I think empowering people to do their best work in the way that they think is the best way to do it, and creating a culture where if you make a mistake, it's fine. Just make sure I hear about it from you first. And then don't make the same one, make a different one, make a new mistake, be innovative. So that's, I think that's gone a long way, both at Shelton and in Mountlake Terrace, to create that culture where people are engaged and they're like, hey, here's some suggestions on how we can do things better. A lot of times we take those, but if I don't, I explain in detail why.
I love it. I think this is where, again, local government, because it is the government of the people, touching the people closest, and it's the most missional work. It's just so inspiring. But we have kind of taken that inspiration away with some of the policy bureaucracy, kind of things that you just mentioned. And so to come in and change that, I think is so powerful. Tell us about, now, this is so interesting that you've taken Mountlake Terrace through a bit of chaos, both just with numbers and budgets now, and then with culture and team, which again, that impacts when you have a healthy, when you have an unhealthy system with structure, culture will follow in unhealthy ways. And so that you've reset the structure and now you can focus on that culture, that collaboration, that risk taking. Tell us about now, where is Mountlake Terrace? What are you guys, again, it's this unique environment. I said it's very, is Mountlake Terrace totally built out? Is there even can you only build up to Saturn now? Like give us the scope of a town like of Mountlake Terrace specifically, in the context of where it is north of Seattle, population over 25,000, and in some of those challenges you said with trying to balance housing, commercial. What does that look like in a place that's just blowing up with people who want housing?
Yeah, so Mountlake Terrace, 25,500 roughly. Just adopted our comprehensive plan. By 2044, we're supposed to be somewhere north of 35. So there's still a lot of growth to be had. Now it's 4 square miles, so it's not a large geographic footprint, but we're putting the infrastructure in place. We have water and sewer lines that were built in the 60s, and they're clearly not going to be, they were built to serve single family homes. So they're clearly not going to be have the capacity to serve, mixed use buildings and that kind of thing. One of the big drivers is the light rail station. Sound Transit opened a light rail station. They're maybe a 10-minute walk, not even that, from City Hall. So right in the downtown area, and we have a town center plan that has been on the books for quite a while. All those buildings will go up to 12 stories. And they'll all have a retail component. We are working on creating, kind of that walkable, I can't remember, one of the Nordic languages, it's called a Wunurf, a walkable street. So having that, being able to activate those areas and make them a real community gathering spot is where we're working on at the moment. We have a lot of other things, in the hopper. Just going back to those financial challenges, in order to be proactive, so backing up a little bit, when I first got there, I'm looking at the financial books and I could tell something wasn't right. But then when I looked at the end fund balance, I'm like, there's no way, we are not Bellevue. We're not, they had a significant end fund balance. So we dove into that, figured out all of those issues, and then we're able to be proactive about getting ahead of the challenges that were coming, because the fund balance was about $4 million less than they thought it was. Which, inflation, the decrease in revenue, or the flat revenue, and then inflation goes along with it. We had to figure out a way to continue to provide the core services that residents expect and they're going to want in the future in a way that was acceptable to the community. So council put together a financial task force, and when we put it together, we wanted people that own homes, people that rent, people that have lived here for 30 years, people that moved in, 2 years ago, everybody from across the spectrum. Put together 15 people, and they worked on that plan for a little over a year, and presented recommendations to council about how to be proactive instead of just panicking one day and cutting everything, how to be proactive about addressing the challenges. And council adopted those recommendations, not exactly, but very close. So I'm very proud of that project about, getting in front of it. I think the other thing, government is almost always reactive to problems. We tend to ignore them because we don't want to air out in public. And in my view, that is the exact wrong way to approach it, and increases distrust in government. So, be transparent about what the issues are. And people may not like it. I don't want to pay higher taxes. Nobody does. But if you connect the value that the community has to the investment that you're making, I think it's a lot easier to make those things happen because people see it.
Such a great point. And just to highlight that again, we get in our head about fears and we make assumptions, and those assumptions are typically negative, and then they stop us from communication. And you see this in relationships. Most marriages, I think I did marriage, as a pastor for years, and basically every marriage counseling was like, you're all making assumptions. They're all piss poor against each other. And that's why you just talk, just say what's on your mind. And if it hurts, then you can actually move on, and you can actually figure out how to heal. You can't do that if you're just, mad at each other, harboring things. It's the same thing in local gov. Especially with, I call it the curse of knowledge. Local gov, it's the same as like the military. You kind of have your own language and your own abbreviations, and it can overwhelm someone because it is complex. I was just thinking, like you just mentioned, one of the things like with infrastructure, and like you said, like now we're building 12 stories up, like we got to redo the water sewer lines because they can't handle that. Well, guess what? If my toilet doesn't flush, I don't care about higher taxes. I care about my toilet flushing. And if you tell me, hey, we have an infrastructure problem and we got to fix this because we want to make sure that your toilets work correctly, guess what? Yeah, I want that to happen. Now I'm informed instead of just like, oh, I don't know what my taxes go towards, And then guess what happens in today's media? Oh, well, Doge, I need to be Doge down at my city hall and make sure that it's not corruption. And it's like, do you understand how bankrupt we are? Listen,
you're right. And you're exactly right. I mean, we did one of the reasons for that exact reason, and you put it more succinctly than I did, but community academy. We put together a community academy for that reason. When you bring people in, we had 30 people. We've done it 2 years in a row now, and you explain how a city's financed and that we're limited to 1% in property tax growth per year, and that sewer rates can't buy a police car, and that the water lines were put in the 60s. People are stunned by that. They are absolutely stunned by that. And there's an appetite for the knowledge, but when you keep everything opaque and it's like, no, everything's fine, we're just going to kick the can down the road. It's, we'll solve it. That can't be budgeted in the capital plan this year. You're not doing a favor to anyone, especially not your future self.
I would totally, we got to have you on again because it's going to turn into a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast. But I want to talk about those city academies, the resident academies, whatever you call it, the community academy. They are so vital. I get it. It's time and you got to make time for it. But listen, if we want to create fans, raving fans, put them through that and then put those people on a special newsletter that informs them of every ribbon cutting, of everything that a city's doing, and invite them. Because you went through this, you get VIP. We're going to have a section for you. That is not hard to do. And yet you would build a huge fan base. And again, sure, it's not going to happen overnight. You can only do 30 a year, but guess what? Over 5 years, that's 150. And over 10 years, it's 300. And all of a sudden and guess what? That's what always confuses me about local gov is not only do you have the people that work, again, it tells me that culture is not healthy internally in many of our local governments, because if your culture was on fire and people were excited about the work, they live in the community predominantly. They're going to have neighbors. They're going to be sharing like stuff. And then you put those neighbors into community academies and they learn about public works and about the cool projects going on and about the vision for things. Then all of a sudden, when neighbor Joe and Tammy complain about taxes, they're like, hey, well, did you know we got a new fire truck? And it's awesome. I got to tour it and I got to go on a garbage truck ride. And like, it's amazing the technology that happens. And it's just like, I think that's what there's some easier steps. It still work. I'm not saying it's easy peasy, it doesn't still require, but it's not as hard as I think that we're afraid of. And if we look at some of the things that we're doing and wasting time on, like maybe we can cut our city man or our council meetings a little shorter and do something like this.
Right. Well, and make it fun, right? And if each of those 30 people talk to 3 neighbors, that 500, over 5 years is 1,500. Yeah. I mean, it's the investment is worth it in my mind.
Absolutely. And it gets people not only because we all have committees, like you said, that thing, that project with that year long, that was all probably volunteer people part of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And so we can't complain that no one wants to show up and be a part of that. Think about the thing that frustrates me is like voting turnout. Like it's like you live in a city like Olympia, 50,000 people, and you're lucky if 2,000 people vote. And that's why.
And all you have to do is mail it in.
All you have to do, exactly. And I'm like, well, sometimes this is why you get such wingnut weirdness on your city councils, because the only people who raise their hand to do it, got nothing better to do. And so, yes, it's work, but if we care about place and we care about community, and I think it's one of the, maybe why I'm so passionate about it is I just see a very individualism happening in America where we have very autonomous, individual, self-serving lives. And I just don't think it's healthy in any way. I believe it's a massive reason why there's so many mental health issues. People need each other and they need community and they need to be a part of something exciting. And I think local gov is the answer because you're doing great things. Because every infrastructure project is there to fund people's houses, the festival that you're going to host, all these cool things. And there's things that we can still do to bring community together. So many good things. I could talk to you forever. Close with this because you've been in 2 cities now, Shelton and Mountlake Terrace, as the city manager. It is a unique role. It is different. You've been a director, so you've been a department director, and that's a weight and a responsibility. But the city manager, I think I connect with it because it's a lot like, I feel like it's a lot like when I was a pastor, which that role, a pastor doesn't turn off. I mean, even when I'm home, like I got neighbors who go, that's the pastor, we can't cuss, that's the pastor. And so you can't go to the grocery store. And it's not just that you can't turn off, you don't turn off because you live in the place that you want to impact with greatness. And so you see all the problems, you see every sidewalk, you're like, I gotta get that fixed. And so how does Jeff shut off? How does Jeff pull back, reset? I always say work-life balance is BS. There's such a thing as balance, but there has to be intention. How does Jeff intentionally care for himself? How does he care for the things outside of work to make sure that you bring your best to work?
Yeah, there is no work-life balance in this job, or very little of it. So you have to have a passion for it. And I absolutely do. That being said, no matter where I'm at, I have my city phone with me, just in case, if the police chief calls, if one of the council members calls, that kind of thing. What I do, I put a lot of time and effort into my kids' youth sports. It brings me joy. I have a daughter that's a competitive gymnast. My oldest son, he's done now, but he got a baseball scholarship to play baseball in college. So put a lot of time and effort into that. I think that, when they're done, I might have a little bit bigger problem. I've answered emails from the Caribbean, but I do that because I wake up very early in the morning and my wife sleeps in. So I get all that done before she wakes up, so I can't get yelled at. But it's something that you're connected with, and you have to have a passion for in order to do it. And you have to have thick skin, right? I've had some things said to me that it's like, wow, okay. But you can't let it get to you. And if it, you just gotta have a thick skin in order to deal with it. But you also have to have a passion for it. And this is my life's work, and it's important to me to do the best that I can.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And that's what in the big keynote speech I give around the nation, I talk about, like, you should never feel guilty for what you're passionate about and the rhythms that you do. You should be mindful of burnout, of when those agitate. You're going to get lambasted. You're going to be the lightning. I call it the lightning rod for those things. That it comes with the game of leadership, right? And the higher title you have, the more you get it. But you do need to know there's nothing wrong. Like, hey, I talked to another guest on here, and they were like, dude, I live and breathe city management. I'm always reading it. I'm in it. And it's like, great. If it's firing you up and you're bringing your healthiest self. Now, if you're all of a sudden realizing, man, I think I'm letting this get to me in an unhealthy way. Okay, hit the pause button. Take a little breather, give yourself that vacay, and give someone else the phone. You've got to have the awareness to know where you're at, because I think, like you said, with culture, you're the setter of it. Kevin Phelps, I always go back to him, recently retired city manager in Glendale, Arizona. He was out here in Pierce County for a while. He says, I'm the CEO, but it's not the title I use. I'm the CCO. I am the Chief Culture Officer. The culture of this organization is vital, and I gotta be right. I gotta be in on that. And so I gotta bring my healthiest self to the game. So I just think there's some really good wisdom there. Well, man, so many good insights, Jeff. I want to have you on again, and I want to talk about both Citizen Academies, and I want to talk about that project you said you're doing with the new city center. One of the things, I had Mike Winder on from Mill Creek, Utah, not Washington, Mill Creek, and he said they built a new city hall, and the whole downstairs is their farmers market for their city. And I thought, how cool is that people come to City Hall? It's one of the biggest gripes I have in Olympia. We built a brand new City Hall, and no one ever goes there because it's intimidating. And why would you go there unless you needed something from the city? And I'm like, what a missed opportunity for this gorgeous building, one of the newest buildings in downtown, to not have some kind of draw for people just to be around local gov. And I think that's what, if we want people to be a part of the process, we got to make our buildings, we got to make the spaces that we occupy something other than just policies and code enforcement and kind of the sides of government that, like, no one really enjoys. It's like the DMV, right? No one enjoys going there. You just got to. I think we have an opportunity to make City Hall a place that reminds people that, like, this is the heart. This isn't just the fingers and we got to do some tasks. This is the heart and the soul of what we're trying to do here as a community. So I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about there. And how
that's a fantastic idea. I'm going to have to look.
So many cool things
as we continue to build out our downtown. But yeah, happy to talk. I enjoy the podcast, and I think it's important, to take ideas from one another, because nobody has all the best ones. You can take ideas from everywhere, and that's fantastic. That's something that your podcast gives me.
I love it. Well, that's the beauty of local gov is we're not like the private sector where we're kind of all fighting for trade secrets, right? Yeah, I love it. It's like we can share, we can learn from each other. Let's take the best, and that's again part of this podcast. Let's share that so we can all learn, and we all want to make our cities awesome. Let's do it together, and let's continue to make communities thrive and flourish. I love it. Thanks for spending some time with us, Jeff. What an incredible story and some incredible insights on your journey.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
The stories we share here on the HaltingWinter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.